when you have that kind of platform and the power of your words are just that very powerful, you got to be a little bit more responsible. And, or I don't know what his thought process is. I don't know how he arrives at what his set's going to be or why he chooses to do the things he does. But I would imagine that he thinks, okay, look, this could be an issue for people. And he's even addressed that in his other documentaries. And what was the last one he did? He's like, you guys are gonna hate me for talking about the gays.
Sure.
He says that, like he's fully aware. So, but
he doesn't like the pushback. Every comedian has that. They don't like feeling like they're being told what they can say or not. And so he's a proud guy and he's pushing back against it. I just don't think it's necessary.
Yeah.
But anyway, we only got a couple more minutes, so we got to get to the last garbage people, including mine, and I'm gonna get ready for the community one. My garbage person of the week is a classic, and for a very weird reason this week. Sorry, but it's gonna be Tucker Carlson. It's also kind of Alex Jones, because Tucker Carlson is just cosplaying Alex Jones at this point. He just tells people what he thinks they want to hear. Damn the facts. Listen to his theory about Joe Biden's broadcast environment.
Biden's handlers are doing everything they can to prevent us from noticing that he's not really in charge. Take a look at the latest example. These are pictures of a fake White House set that the Biden administration has for some reason constructed across the street from the actual White House. It's in an auditorium at the Eisenhower Executive Office Building. Why go to the trouble? They already have a White House. Well, Stephen Miller spent the last 4 years in the White House as an advisor to Trump, and here's his explanation for it, because he would know. Quote, the reason Biden uses this bizarre virtual set for televised meetings and not an actual room like the East Room, the Cabinet, the Oval, the Roosevelt Sit Room, et cetera, there are a lot of rooms. The reason he does this is because it allows him to read a script directly from a face-on monitor and without teleprompter glass that can be seen on camera. Oh. Now, we can't verify that that's true, but it certainly sounds right.
Well, and that's, as a journalist, we can't verify it, but it sounds good. And it gives me the feelies I like in my feely center. So I'm just gonna say that it's true. He created a fake set. He created it. All of these are things that Tucker Carlson is saying. It's not true. It's not a fake White House. It's a place for meetings. Why not just use the Oval Office? Well, I don't know. The Oval Office doesn't have a lighting grid in the top and room for an audience. And also, he didn't create it, and it would have been very easy for Tucker Carlson and his big, he's got a whole staff and crew and everything. They could have done this research. They chose not to do that. So what you actually saw, and it wasn't just him. Stephen Miller was talking about this, Charlie Kirk and others. It's the South Court Auditorium. It's a place where they hold high-profile events. Biden has done it, and Kamala Harris, and so has Trump. And so has Obama before them. For more than a decade, they've been using this room because it's easy to do, to virtually bring people in. It's got the tech for that. It's got room for an audience. It's a high-tech spot for doing filming. And he didn't have a problem with it when Trump was doing it, but he likes the idea that Biden is so, incompetent that he's only doing it so he can use a teleprompter. And it's a theory that makes a lot of sense because you certainly couldn't bring a teleprompter into the Oval Office. None of this makes any sense whatsoever. But his audience wants to believe not only that Biden is incompetent, but that someone else is pulling the strings. It's a fun little conspiracy theory, and sure, he can't prove it, but it certainly feels true. And more importantly, what feels good? Ratings. And he knows that this conspiratorial nonsense will bring those. Super fast comments, we got like no time.
All salient points, John. You took the words right out of my mouth.
I try to. And let's see what the audience thinks. So those are our garbage people of the week, but looks like 33,000 of you voted this week. And here are your top 5. Number 5 this week with 3% of the vote is Senator Grassley for congratulating a Korean judge on her people. Oh God. Number 4 with 4% of the vote is Stephanie Grisham for her hypocrisy on writing tell-alls. That's a funny one. Number 3 with 10% of the vote is Bill Maher for his bizarre defense of cinema and Mansion. That's a great one too. Coming in at number 2 at 12% of the vote is right-wing media for claiming Fauci is canceling Christmas. What a bunch of dinguses. But number 1, blowing away with the competition with 71% of the vote is Joe Manchin for eliminating 2/3 of progressive priorities. Thanks a bunch, Joe, you suck. Anyway, thank you everybody who voted as well. And most importantly of all, thank you, Jason Carter, for joining us on Fridays. So much fun, thank you.
So much fun, I'm glad. I know I talked too much today, but hey, you had me fired up. It was the pumpkin spice coffee, man. It does
just, it gets you jittery. It gets you jittery, like my heart on Monster. Anyway, where can people watch more of your content?
You can go to my website, Jason Carter Official, on Instagram or on YouTube at Jason Unleashed.
Thank you so much. Hope to talk to you soon. And everyone, thank you for watching. I'll be leading the first hour of the power panel with Cenk. We've got a very twitchy lineup. It's going to be a lot of fun with Ben Carollo and Rayvana as well, so you're not going to want to miss that. Indisputable is coming up soon. Jordan Uhl is going to be on. They're diving deep with Karens today, so great little crossover event there. So don't go anywhere unless you're on our channel on YouTube, in which case you should go to Indisputable's channel, obviously, so you can watch. But until next time, stay safe out there, stay sane out there. We'll see you soon.
Welcome, it's Indisputable, good to be with you. It's Friday, this is a Friday show, I guarantee it. We got a lot on the agenda today. Breaking down news of the day, we got the big homie Jordan Uhl. He will be giving his 2 cents and some more on all of the stories today. Progressive activist, host of Deep Dive. And during the Bullpen segment, we have Pedro Gonzalez, associate editor at Chronicle, a magazine of American culture. We will chop it up about a few things. Top news story of the day. A man, paraplegic, not able to walk, can't use his legs, tells the police, I can't walk. I'm not able to use my legs. He gets pulled over. They continue to tell him, step out of the car. Here's the video.
Clifford Owensby? Yes, driver's Owensby. Turn the car for me, please. All right, under your seatbelt for me. Yeah, I'm having you step out of the car.
I can't step out the car, sir.
Well, you got paraplegic.
I got help getting in.
Well, I'll help you getting out.
Excuse me?
I'm gonna help you get out.
Well, I don't think that's gonna happen, sir.
Well, I do, because I'm I'm asking you, but I'm telling you. So it's not enough.
Can I ask you what's the problem?
Yeah, the problem is that because of your history, I'm gonna have the dog do a free air around the car. You have to be out of the car.
I can't get out of the vehicle, sir.
Sir, I'm going to assist you get out of the vehicle. As someone
No, you're not. No, you're not. No, you're not. You're not gonna touch me. You're definitely not about to touch me. And I'm about to go ahead and get somebody on the line because it will be a lawsuit if you put your hands on me for no reason, bro.
Well, the reason is that I'm asking you.
No. We ain't gonna go there. We about to get some people here that's about to witness what's going on.
That's right. You gotta step out, buddy.
I cannot step out. I'm a paraplegic. I cannot. I'm a paraplegic, sir. Come on, bro.
Step out of the car.
I cannot step out of the car.
How many times do you have to tell a cop, I'm unable to step out of the car? Step out of the car, sir. Step out of the car. Step out of the car, sir. Ridiculous, right? Now, they pulled this young brother over, Clifford Owensby. Mr. Owensby does have prior interaction with law enforcement. No big deal to me. Law enforcement should be professional. Now, here's what happened after that.
You can hurt me, bro.
Get out of the car. Get out of the
What
car.
y'all doing, bro?
Dude, you're making this worse.
I'm a paraplegic, bro. I'm trying to tell you that I got help getting in the car. Y'all can hurt me. They can hurt me.
Get out of the car.
Bro, I'm a paraplegic.
Get out. You have to get out of the car.
Ow.
Get out of the car.
Somebody help.
Something right here.
Somebody help.
Stop.
Somebody help.
Stop.
They were still telling Mr. Owensby to get out of the car after they dragged him out of the car. He did request a white shirt. A white shirt means supervisor. The officer there was well aware that this man requested a supervisor. He is disabled. He did not call a supervisor at that time. As a matter of fact, refused to do so. Now, I know some people will make this about the criminal background of Mr. Owensby. It's not about that. This is about decency. This is about the treatment of another citizen. This is about being decent because none of this had to happen. Let me give you some more background on Clifford Owensby, the man pulled from this vehicle during a traffic stop Thursday, told Dayton Daily News Monday afternoon that he felt helpless as officers put him on the ground, handcuffed him, and then placed him into the back of a cruiser. The incident took place on the 1200 block of West Grand Avenue, according to a report. Now, I don't blame him for requesting a supervisor. Remember, he has a particular condition that if you simply snatch him out the car, he can be injured. This needs to be handled with an amount of finesse, with some care, intention. He did get injured. Owensby, who says he does not have use of his legs, said he was injured during the incident, having sustained scrapes from the pavement and is still in pain. He also said that a previous back injury was in fact re-injured. Mr. Owensby said, and I quote, "I feel like they don't even respect me as a citizen," adding that the way he felt treated made him feel low. Of course he did. Dayton police said they are aware of the incident and the Professional Standards Bureau is currently investigating. The investigation will include the review of any policies and training when encountering these situations. Detectives from the Professional Standards Bureau have already interviewed the driver in the video. Don't hold your breath. Don't hold your breath for something miraculous to happen, like officers being held to a professional standard to be accountable for how they treat individuals. Thankfully, this young man was not killed during that encounter and not severely injured, but injured, which, by the way, he was trying to avoid injury. Jordan, what are your thoughts here?
Well, I think his comments sum it up perfectly. They're not treating him with dignity. They're not treating him with respect. And there's already, struggles for black men in America when dealing with the police, and there's certainly struggles in society for disabled people. Now you combine those two things, and he's, marginalized in multiple different ways. What the police, maybe they're just so stupid they didn't understand what the words paraplegic meant. That's totally within the realm of possibility when we're dealing with the police. It's not, you don't get the best and brightest. But what really appalled me was, in addition to ignoring requests for a supervisor, treating him as subhuman, they pulled him out by his hair.
Yeah.
You could, by his shoulders, you could lift him up under his in his armpits. There's multiple different ways. But the thing is, they went for the most violent possible way to remove him from the car. And then at some point later in the video, it looked like, at least temporarily, they put their foot on his neck. So, I mean, this is somebody who's already down, can't even get up if he wanted to, and they're still screaming at him as he just asks for help and for someone to film. And thank God the body cam was on.
Yeah, and I noticed that as well in the initial altercation. They pulled him by his dreadlocks. It was really horrendous, but once again, they don't care about him. They didn't care about his disability. They did not find any drugs in his vehicle. This started over a tint window issue, and there was a child in the car in the back seat without a child seat. But definitely did not warrant this kind of behavior from law enforcement. And people wonder why folks don't like the police. It's because of things like this. This was a simple situation. They turned it into the mountain that it is today. It did not have to be this. All right, let me shift gears to another person who works for the police, okay? Let me take you to Jacksonville. There's a Jacksonville sheriff office dispatcher named Scott Matthew Yotka. Let me tell you about this fellow. He has now been indicted for producing child pornography. A federal grand jury has returned an indictment charging Scott Matthew Yotka, 47 of Jacksonville, with producing and distributing, get this, materials depicting young children being sexually abused. Yotka faces a minimum mandatory sentence of 15 years and up to 80 years in federal prison and a potential life term of supervised release. Yotka was arrested at his residence by FBI agents September 17th, 2021, and is currently detained awaiting trial. So they got a true bill on this guy. Grand jury comes back, says this individual who has a significant position of public trust engaged in this kind of activity. Now, here's the background. According to court documents, on September 15th, 2021, Yotka, using the name Scott and Jax 44, utilized a particular social media application to engage in online private conversations with an undercover FBI task force officer in Washington, D.C., who was posing as the parent of a child. Yotka and the undercover officer discussed in detail the sexual exploitation of children. Now, I want to remind you, this person works for the sheriff's office. This person has a position of public trust. This individual is engaging in this kind of activity freely. The way he got caught was that an FBI agent observing the app saw strange activity and decided to engage. It gets deeper. Yotka stated that he was sexually active with 2 young children, both of whom were unable to talk. Yotka sent the undercover officer several photos and a video that depicted 2 children being sexually abused. Yotka also stated that he was employed as an emergency dispatcher and worked 12-hour shifts. True statement, by the way. Stephen Norton. Now, I want to bring this to your attention because it's important to note people like this routinely seek position of trust or positions of trust to do exactly what they're doing. So here's what forensic psychologist Stephen Norton said. Such shocking revelations about people in society considered to have high standing should not be such a surprise. They like that standing, being publicly this good person and in private this deviant person. They like the idea of that balance, he says. But some people, particularly those in good standing, they have this idea they can fool people and get away with these really bad things and nobody would suspect them. And that's part of the drive also. This piece of you-know-what has been indicted. The forensic psychologist was absolutely correct. And I highlight this story to remind everyone that monsters like this in the world, they do not necessarily have a political affiliation or particular religion or racial background. These monsters can come in different shapes and sizes, different packages, and many of them intentionally engage and try to become people in positions of public trust in order to get away with their evil. Every parent, every person that mentors youth, make sure you are vigilant about people like this. I have highlighted multiple stories on this show alone of those who work in law enforcement who are engaging in sex with children. They are pedophiles. Jordan, not the first time, won't be the last time. But when it comes across my desk, it will be highlighted every time.
Yeah, I mean, it's not surprising. I mean, you have stories constantly about abusers in police departments or stats about how I saw recently this week an estimated 40% of cops are engaged in some sort of domestic violence or domestic abuse. Wow. I mean, like you pointed out, people who behave that way and have that kind of pathology seek those types of positions because who's going to hold them accountable? It's all handled internally. You mentioned in the last story, it's going to be up for review. That's laughable. Just as a personal anecdote, I had a buddy last week or a couple weeks ago at a concert in Alabama, was kicked in the head by a cop, and the response was, "Oh, we'll investigate it internally." What's there to find? It's not surprising.
Yeah, very sad, and that's why we need the George Floyd Policing and Accountability Act. We need true transparency, and we need replacement, reimagining of police agencies across the country. Let me go to this principal, this school principal, extremely insensitive, decided to call his own students, black students primarily, by the way, criminals, okay? This was done because of something called throwback, all right? High school principal in Texas, yep, in Texas, has apologized for comparing black students to Dr. Dre from the 90s and allegedly telling them that they look like criminals. Let's put up a picture of this very brilliant school principal. His name is Anthony LaVecchi. Principal Anthony has a program at his school that allows kids to dress a particular way, themed for back in the day, right? So the principal was caught on video last Thursday complaining about black students, how they were dressed for the 90s throwback day at Oak Ridge High School in Conroe, a suburb of Houston. The principal went around the school telling people that it was his worst day being principal because of the way that students dressed. It's a theme, principal. Everybody had on something from the 90s. Here's the picture of the students. He called them thugs, criminals. Worst day as a principal was when black students showed up dressing like they were in the 90s on a day that we told students to come dressed up like they were in the 90s. Worst day ever, according to the principal. Student athlete Trinidad Robinson, who runs track at the school, confirmed Baker's statement. I have some records for the school, and when we were walking by, he said, "Y'all look like criminals." I'm like, how is us dressing and expressing predominantly 90s and 2000s black culture equated to being a criminal? About 100 students staged a sit-in after this on Monday to protest the principal's comments, while local civil rights activists and parents met with the principal. After the meeting, the principal did apologize. According to several students, during Monday's peaceful protest, there were some other students making racist remarks and terroristic threats in person and on social media. Well, you don't say. If you have a principal who's willing to say this is the worst day of me being principal and y'all look like criminals because you're dressed in attire that's a cultural expression of the 90s, you think he's disconnected from the sentiment of that community? No. Jordan, did you see criminals here?
No, not at all. And I think it goes without saying. I mean, you have to recognize when you're talking about fashion in the 80s and 90s, or even early 2000s, like it was a disproportionate amount of influence from like black artists and black creatives. Look at the effect on culture that black artists and black creatives had on even sneaker culture with Adidas. Right. Like partnerships with Adidas in the 90s were huge. So it's laughable. I mean, the guy looks like a square. And I guess if you really want people to wear like Jankos to school, that's it. But it's not really worth celebrating. It's kind of a stain on humanity.
Right, exactly. And see, even though critical race theory is not taught in K through 12 education, I think it needs to be taught in that school, or at least be taught to that principal, because he is exhibiting exactly what critical race theory says we should analyze as people in this country. We got more on the other side. It's indisputable. Stick and stay.
Cenk Uygur is not here today, which means that I will be able to talk during the show.
We'll see.
Poor Cenk, under the bus.
My God, if Jesus came back, how much would the Republicans hate him? So now you have to give away all of your possessions to the poor. Steve King would be like, oh, Weezy. Everyone should be lucky enough to have a John Iadarola in their life.
You confused everyone?
Okay, sorry, I thought it was pretty clear.
Take a break now.
You can turn me to Dr. Manhattan as long as I get what Dr. Manhattan's packing, okay?
The liberal mom says, Mark Thompson, have you ever thought about doing one of those tapes that soothe people to sleep? Like Mark Thompson reads the phone book. I'd buy it.
If you'll buy it, I'll do it.
Emilio D'Amelio writes in, John, you are so thick. I love you. That's what he wrote.
Pork Chop Express writes in and says John Iadarola needs a new jacket.
Whoa.
Those 24-inch pythons are about to burst out of his sleeve.
Gun, baby. You know, the two people here said that their moms were both in love with you over Beauty and the Beast.
Mm-hmm. That's an improvement. I usually get grandmothers.
Charlie Turk.
No, wait a minute, don't you dare.
Chemical castration when we return from the break.
I hope that, who they choose for the White House isn't just a borderline Klansman. That's all we gotta hope.
That's it, we will settle it.
She's cute.
I didn't say that about Laura Ingraham.
Scandal at TYT. Did Anna comment on my tan yet? No, she hasn't.
You're a good bosser.
But Anna did say that I come in here today with a fresh mind. That's all I'm about. I'm about a fresh mind.
I can't with you right now. Okay?
She just can't. She can't, but nonetheless, we have to for another 3 hours. I'm back, baby. Let's rip in the Republicans. See, don't miss the live show. That's great. Tell people, if you're a member, you get the whole live show whenever you want, because this stuff doesn't go into any of the clips.
Welcome to the Damage Report. I'm John Iadarola. This is gonna be a big one. Meanwhile, in the Arctic, you know where this is going. You watch the Damage Report, the Arctic's on fire. Obviously, why would we be talking about the Arctic except to tell you that it's melting once again? The Republicans aren't that interested in it. I wonder why. Lift out of poverty up to 3.7 million people, including an estimated 1.3 million children. Hashtag save the children? Not if it costs money. I mean, come on.
What's happening? I'm Dr. Rashad Richey, host of Indisputable with Dr. Rashad Richey. Here's the bottom line. I play no games about policy, period. Too many people's lives are at stake. So here's what I do. I challenge conservative ideology that hinders the growth of this country. I make sure we place our facts in proper context, and I have no problem debating anyone on a position that I have. Progressives have the ideas to change the world, but when you really look at it, progressives have always changed this world for the better. I want you to tune into my new show, Indisputable with Dr. Rashad Richey, right here on the TYT Network, 2:30 p.m. Eastern Time, 11:30 a.m. Pacific Time. I'll see you there.
Everything that we've accomplished over the years is because of our members who've allowed us to remain independent of corporate interests and reach 20 million followers. Now is the time to bring as many people into the progressive movement as possible. We're inviting you to be the change and help bring a community-powered progressive change machine to life. Details are at tyt.com/change. If you're a member, thank you. We need you to remain so. If you're one of the thousands of viewers out there who's not a member yet, the time has come for you to join now. We need you more than ever. tyt.com/change.
Yep, welcome back. Okay, we got a lot of comments. Before we go to the comments, let me remind everyone that this show has been nominated for Best TV Anchor at Atlanta Magazine's Best of Series. You can vote up until October 11th. And if this show has touched you so, you can vote real easy. tyt.com/Rashad, tyt.com/Rashad. Type in my name in the box, Rashad Richey. Something should auto-populate. When you do, just click on whatever auto-populates, okay? Thank you in advance for your vote. And we are on podcast, we're everywhere. So if you wanna take the Bullpen, news of the day, whatever, you wanna take that where you go, let's get it done. Here's what you probably should do. I think this will be really fun because I had a friend that did it. Put in one of the Bullpen debates while you're on an elevator with a known Republican. I mean, somebody at your job, okay? And just see what happens. Don't do that. Don't do that for real. If you can't, if it'll get you in trouble. Tongue-in-cheek remark. Make sure you download it, Apple Podcast, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Acast, wherever you get your podcast from. Give us a 5-star rating if you would. You enjoy the programming. Yes, and Galaxy Brain. Yes, Galaxy Brains with Ben Carollo, Fridays 4 p.m. Eastern time, 1 p.m. Pacific time. Tune in, that's a Twitch exclusive, twitch.tv/TYT. All right, TYT member, make you see the silver haired dragon. How adorable is Jordan Uhl? We were just, as a matter of fact, before the show, Brett was saying the same thing about Jordan. Jordan, you got an admirer, you got to say something. I mean, that's 2 times within an hour, bro.
So uncomfortable. I don't know.
All right.
Oh, good. Go to the next story.
Imploded Brainy says all of those cops need to be fired immediately. It seems they do not have a bare minimum grasp of the English language. They need to go. And I was getting so irritated when the cop kept saying, step out of the car, step out of the car, step out of the car. What? Okay, Eric the Red. There was a child in the car. The immensity of their malice just went up when I didn't think it could. Yeah, they didn't give a damn about any of that. R. King Juan Garcia, I'm sure his wheelchair was in the car. Paralyzed individuals can suffer medical issues, right? EcoStar, tinted windows was excuse for doing a Terry stop to search for drugs. That's correct, a pretextual stop. Terry stops used disproportionately against black men. It is racist. Agreed. Bernie the Kiwi Dragon. My mother's name was Karen. She passed a year ago tomorrow. She donated her body to a medical school, and I'm very proud of her. The Karen's lowercase ought to learn from someone like her. I agree 100%. Forbesilla, best use of the word square. Best use of the word square I've ever heard, Jordan. Love also, you're looking like such a babe today. Damn, Jordan.
This is happening.
What's going on, man?
I don't know.
Is it? I mean, damn, is a haircut that important, brother?
I guess. I have no idea.
Known?
Yeah.
You got the keys to the gate, man. Okay. Nicole Purple says, really over a tent window issue? Yeah, but see, that's, once again, that's the bogus, that's the bull, right? They just wanted to see, did he have drugs, and they didn't have evidence that he had drugs. So yeah, let's come up with some bull to pull him over and then, put a dog in his car. Let's see if he has dope. Ladies and gentlemen, I wish a Karen would.
You want to call the police on him for having a barbecue on a Sunday.
I feel free! Back off! I'm going to tell them there's an African-American man threatening my life.
He's going to back.
Get out of my country. I'm telling you, get out of my country.
Excuse me. Sorry, excuse me. No, just a second.
Get out of my country.
Excuse me.
I'm saying it now. I'm saying it now. I'm saying it now. Get out of my country. Get the out of my country. No, I'm not going to leave. You know when they can come?
You can be there.
I can kick them, yeah. And you know what? You are all ugly. You are the ugliest mother in the world. Get the out! Because I don't want you here, and I'm going to vote against you, and I'm going to kill you when I can.
You're not killing me. I hope you're not killing me.
Yes. This Karen said she's going to kill them. That is a terroristic threat, completely against the law. The Karenicity in this one runs deep. She also is, in fact, committing a criminal act. Now, this is the classic Karenicity move. Remember, we're keeping a book here. We're keeping a log of classic Karenicity logic. So we know that classic Karenicity logic says things like, get out of my country, okay? So we have that in the book, right? And Karenicity logic also says, how dare you interrupt my rudeness and be rude to me while I'm being rude to somebody else? Mind your own business. Ladies and gentlemen, we highlight these Karens because Karens are dangerous. And for decades in this country, Karens have created such chaos through their accusations, through calling 911, through weaponizing their whiteness and their privilege against black and brown people. We have decided to tell the other side of that narrative so that socially people are aware that just because a woman who is a white female says a black or brown person is attacking me, or a male, we highlight male Karens on this show too. If they're using their privilege in order to harm another person, or they think they can make scenes like this and be racist and bigoted, they may earn a spot right here on Indisputable. Jordan Uhl, she won't get out of their store, but she's telling them they need to get out of her country.
Yeah, I was kind of shocked because she kind of checked every box. Usually when people act on their hatred and act on their racism, they kind of hold a little bit back, You never hear kind of the worst of the worst, but she just let it all spill out. I wonder if she was just like really drunk or something. But like, you see the elements of how you dehumanize somebody of a different race when you have that kind of hatred within you. When she says at some point, you're ugly, I wanna kill you. These are horrific sentiments that anyone would have. Is just really alarming, and that she so freely spouts them in a group setting. Seemingly aware she's being filmed, people are watching on. Just really disgusting behavior. Just an absolutely repulsive person.
If you want to know what your friend thinks about you, get them drunk. Okay, that's what you do. So drunk does not mean racist. There are plenty of my friends get drunk. I have plenty of white friends, they get drunk around me. They don't get racist because getting drunk does not mean you're getting racist. But it does eliminate some of the barriers to what you would try to control yourself not to say. So I'm not sure if the young lady was drunk or not. I am sure she's racist. But even if she was drunk, it does not excuse her racism. I have something for everybody. Double dose.
You want to call the police on him for having a barbecue on a Sunday.
I feel free! Back off! I'm going to tell them there's an African-American man threatening my life.
We have Congress! He's filming you! Get the yourself. Go. Stop it. Go. Get away the face. Hello. See you outside.
I'm a trained security guard. I know exactly what to do with stuff like this. Just watch and do nothing. Oh, here.
Stop, let's go. You shouldn't be here in Belfast.
You're the one thing that I've been in the country. You're on drugs. Get the out of my face. Get it.
You gotta love the guy who's in the background saying, I'm a trained security guard. I know exactly what to do in a situation like this. Karen goes international. Once again, very dangerous criminal behavior here. And this Karen was in Belfast, and it was Northern Ireland at a fast food restaurant called Mickey's, okay? And she decided to throw a major tantrum as well as a trash can. But I wanna bring your attention to a couple of things. She grabs that hamburger at the end as she walks away. That was quite fascinating that during all of that, she remembered that her friend was holding the hamburger. I would have completely forgot about that. I mean, this is a next level Karen here. To have all of that rage, to have all of that Karenicity, you're operating on about 5 or 6 different levels of Karenicity, and you still remembered that your buddy is outside holding your sandwich, okay? All right, yeah, you see the throwing of the trash can, once again, advanced level Karenicity here. And do we have when she hopped on the table, I mean, I did not see this move coming. Do we have that one too? I mean, look at the skill here. All right, we're gonna get to it. Yeah, all right, y'all saw it already. Jordan, is it me, or are these Karens evolving to becoming like Terminator? What's happening here?
I hope not. I mean, Terminator is a pretty fatalistic ending. But we talked about these a lot last time I was on. I think I called you a Karen sommelier. So you have a really refined, palette for these types of videos. But I think this one specifically, I think we should focus on how she is treating those employees and how. And I hope everyone, I'm certain everyone in the chat understands. You should not be a jerk to someone working an hourly wage. You shouldn't really be a jerk to anybody, but especially people in those positions. Fast food, restaurants, service, cashiers, whatever. Those jobs are thankless jobs. Don't be a jerk to them. And that the entitlement, the self-importance demonstrated by this person in this video was on full display, and they're throwing trash at them, screaming at them, trying to assault them. Moral of the story here is do not be a jerk to people in those positions. That is thankless work, and they're just trying to make ends meet.
Okay, you all can hear me now. Thank you. Sorry about that. We have all experienced bad service, right, Jordan? You've experienced bad service somewhere. We have all experienced an order that we paid for, and it's wrong. We get it, it's wrong. Sometimes we're able to go back and they can fix it. We've experienced rudeness. People have been rude to us. People have been rude. Everyone watching, you have come across somebody working somewhere that was rude to you. It's part of humanity. That part is normative, actually. It's the push and pull of human psychology and the social atmosphere that we live in. But you know what's not normal? Treating people like garbage, throwing a garbage can at them, and literally trying to fight them because you don't like a back and forth, or you don't like how the order was given to you, or maybe somebody had an attitude with you. Listen, people have off days sometimes. If there's a person serving you, just think about this. And this to me is where many of these Karens lack humanity. If somebody is having a bad day, they're working in fast food. I used to work in fast food. I worked in fast food as a teenager, a lot. And some days I had bad days. I may not have smiled when I was supposed to. I may have gotten an order wrong because I'm not as focused as I should be. And sometimes I was rude to people, and I didn't try to be, but it did happen. But I did not expect any customer to act like that. And Jordan, you bring up a great point, because many of these Karens that we highlight, they feel so privileged, so entitled, that they're willing to display actual criminal behavior over something that was only about customer service. Yeah. All right. We got more on the other side. It's indisputable. Stick and stay.
You know what the progressive movement needs? It needs a little energy, a little pizzazz, maybe a little caffeine. Oh, coffee. But what if it was Too Strong Coffee? Yes, new twostrongcoffee.com/TYT. Look, this helps progressive causes. It's also organic and fair trade, so you've got peace of mind that it was done right, and it happens to taste great. So check it out right now at twostrongcoffee.com/TYT.
That 300 million is a pretty good number, Well, that's the size of the US population. You know what our next target is? The size of the entire world. We just crossed 5 billion views on YouTube.
I mean, imagine 10 years ago thinking one day.
We looked at you like, are you nuts? Young Turks has just passed another milestone. 15 billion views. Damn. All right, lots of comments. You guys are the best.
I'm gonna read a few comments from our members.
Mr. Methuselah says on YouTube, super chat, thanks for all the important work you do for TYT for the movement.
Do you know who had the first super chat when I got back from vacation? You won't be surprised to find out. Rob Shively, what do you know? Rob says, rejoice for Dragon Daddy has returned.
This question sent to us by Izzy Sanchez Jr. Is it me or is Meghan McCain talking as fast as Ben Shapiro? Is that the way the right tries to look smart and intellectual? Well, yes.
Michael Nathan writes it on Twitter. Did Anna choose Cenk's outfit today? I'm sure it wasn't Cenk himself. Man Bun Jenkins Skinny Jeans says, so now Anna has pointed out, okay, that's his handle.
T. Joyce, 1971, saying Donald Trump is good at pulling out of things, NAFTA, the Iran deal, NATO. It's just too bad Fred Trump didn't.
All right, let me do a little quick plug here. It's not even a plug, I'm bragging, okay? I'm bragging, watch me. We have a channel on YouTube, a whole channel devoted just to the Young Turks. It's badass, right? Wow, man. I can see the voice.
You guys are rock stars.
Unbelievable. Senator Sanders, welcome to Rebel Headquarters. Man, you guys are amazing. We gave you what you wanted. Okay. Speaking of shirts.
I have a surprise.
You reached a lot of people. You are the Young Turks. And we have spread that progressive message wide and far. Let's keep it going.
Here's what we do. We go beyond the headline. We are willing to engage in transparent conversations with those who do not think like me. We also make sure that you know what's happening not only nationally, but in your local area. Make sure you tune in to Indisputable with Dr. Rashad Ritchie, Monday through Friday, 2:30 p.m. Eastern Time, 11:30 a.m. Pacific Time.
Cool news, shoptyt.com now has books. There's a whole bunch of books there. You're gonna be shocked to find out that they're largely progressive. Of course! Ryan Grimm's book, We've Got People, is there. It's a fantastic story from Jesse Jackson to Bernie Sanders to AOC that explains the progressive movement probably better than any book I've ever read. Speaking of awesome books, my dad's got a book out called The Original Young Turk, where he goes from the poorest olive farmer you ever met in your life to living the American dream.
All right, welcome back. It's a Friday show, okay? And I got something in store for you all. You're gonna love it, all right? Let me read some of these amazing comments. TYT member Eric the Red says, get out of my country. by the power vested in her by the state of intoxication. I am shocked. Is there some kind of insurance cashiers and fast food workers can buy in case of a Karen incident? There should be. Somebody needs to get into that line of insurance, right? Ocam's taser. You can't be a happy person if you put this much effort into making people around you unhappy. Yeah, agreed. Let me try to do this. Yasharallah Asa Israel. You should, or they should be in jail for attempted murder. Yeah. Ibibio Toy Ayen Klee. Yes, give the barber some. Hashtag TYT. Hashtag Rashad Ritchie. Everybody's going to want to know your barber now, Jordan. I hope you're okay with that. You have now put your barber on the map. Do you have a barber?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Bring the barber next time.
It's like, all right. It's like next to my apartment, so I really don't want to say exactly where it is.
Right, I understand. Dragonheart. I worked in retail for over 14 years. I loved it, even when customers were jerks. The best way to deal with them was to stand your ground while being nice. They don't know how to handle it. And that's right. Anytime we've seen somebody be real nice, like have a nice day, okay, like that does it for these Karens. Okay, they go totally ham beyond what they already are. This is really funny. I think this is Ewa Weeman. When I worked as a customer service agent by phone, we had Karen training. It's necessary these days. Okay, very disturbing story. Someone who says publicly they hate black people now has a very powerful position working in the federal judiciary. Let me bring your attention to what happened a few years back that got someone basically fired from Turning Points USA. You know Turning Points USA, right? That's Charlie Kirk's group, far right. A lot of bigoted language there, no problem. But if you're so damn racist that they say you gotta go. Here it is, Crystal Clanton left the conservative Talking Points USA organization in 2017 after her racist text surfaced. Okay, that's what happened. Here's one of her texts. I hate black people. Like F them all. I hate blacks. End of story. Now let me say this. I know some of you are just really horrified by that text. That's the kind of racist that all racist people should strive to be like. If you're going to be racist in a way that I know you're racist. I don't want you to be the closeted racist that I gotta figure stuff out and you're doing all of this passive aggressive Karenicity stuff. No. Put it up again. This is, ladies and gentlemen, the text message of a proud racist person. I hate black people. Like F them all, I hate blacks, end of story. Okay? So this becomes public. She's very out there. It is what it is. We can now deal with this person as they are, a racist individual, right? So here's what happens. Soon after an organization that already has its fair share of issues with bigots, after she leaves that organization because of her being racist, she lands a job assisting Ginni Thomas with her right-wing media ventures. Now, who's Ginni Thomas? Ginni Thomas is the wife of Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas. Of course she is. Of course, the person that said I hate black people, the white wife of the black Clarence Thomas has to go out and recruit her to work. You follow me so far? It gets deeper. Let's show the picture of them out having a drink together. Good old time. Now, let me say this. I'm not a married man. I've never been married before. I hope one day I am married. And if I am married, and there's a person that says, I hate black people, I don't think I would like my wife to go and treat them to wine. You know? Thomas hired Ms. Clanton right after her stint at TPUSA and kept her on, gushing about her on social media despite the negative racist coverage. Kirk suggested he was outraged after Clanton's racist text leaked, but more reporting showed she would exchange racist remarks with other staffers at TPUSA. And now the kicker, ladies and gentlemen, despite saying she hates black people, she just landed one of the most sought after jobs in the legal community. She will now clerk for federal appeals court judge William Pryor. But she is on record for saying she hates black people, end of story. Well, I guess for her, it is not the end of her story. No, she received not only a promotion, she received the promotion in the legal field. Jordan, we talk about systemic racism, privilege, bias, systemic elements of bias. We talk about the necessity to analyze these biases. And I be damned, a woman that just told you how she feels about all black people, she lands the legal job that damn near everyone who has a JD wants.
Yeah, it is a common case of failing upward on the right. And also totally disproves any claims of cancel culture or anything like that. You can openly spout this type of horrible rhetoric, and one of the most powerful and influential people. I mean, she's got ties to like Heritage Foundation. She's a mover and shaker in DC, and obviously is married to the Supreme Court justice. But that like people within that realm are still willing to give her a job, and that's like you say, that's a really prestigious clerkship. It just shows like cancel culture and the narrative around it is totally bogus. That marriage has always really puzzled me. The Thomas.
And there's so much irony in the they're inappropriate as far as what they align with. I mean, literally, Clarence Thomas hears cases that his wife is somehow connected to organizations, conservative groups, etc.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. Very sad story because the Denver Zoo did something that led to the death of a black man. And you know what they gave him? A plaque. I kid you not. 10 years ago, a man named Alonzo Ashley, let's put up his picture. He was killed. A black family was finally issued an apology from a Denver Zoo official a decade after their loved one died at their establishment following a confrontation with police. So let me give you some background as to what happened. And 10 years later, they give the family a plaque, okay? July 18th, 2011. Mr. Ashley was visiting the zoo with his girlfriend's family when he reportedly started displaying strange behavior and hurried to the nearest water fountain. The 29-year-old was spotted by a zoo volunteer who called for police, who, when they arrived, tackled the man and shocked him with a stun gun. The death was caused by cardiorespiratory arrest, initially brought on by heat, dehydration, as well as the exertion that took place during the struggle between the officers and the victim. Now, I want you to understand what's happening here. He was having a heat stroke. No one really knew exactly what was wrong, but he knew he needed water. He's having a heat stroke. They come, they tackle him. He exerts even more energy, sweating more. He dies. They kill him. He just needed some water, okay? 8 officers were involved in Mr. Ashley's death. None were charged or faced any disciplinary action from the Denver Police Department. 5 years after his death, his family was awarded a whopping $295,000 to settle the lawsuit they brought against the department. Many black residents in the community boycotted the establishment. On the anniversary of Ashley's death, members of the Denver Justice Project would head to the zoo and hand out water as a reminder of the incident, the tragic incident. Zoo officials asked protesters to leave the zoo's plaza and eventually had them barred from the premises completely. So here's what the zoo has decided to do. They have kicked out the protesters. They have kicked out the peaceful people giving water to folks just to remind them this zoo contributed to the death of a black man who simply wanted water. And so the zoo, they say, here's our remedy. And this is what they gave the family. They issued a plaque. Well, isn't that big of them? A plaque. Jordan, your thoughts?
I've got a friend who lives in Denver, and he shares your political views, I think, as well as mine. And he calls people like this in Denver the Patagonia Democrats, where this type of like sympathy and activism is purely an aesthetic. Here you had protesters and demonstrators and organizers just trying to, hey, like we're trying to remind you of what happened. We want to fight systemic injustice. We're here to hand out water bottles. Not disruptive at all whatsoever. They kick them out and put up a plaque, so they cover their butts, they pat themselves in the back, despite being like the place where this whole thing went down and had a role in it. I cannot think of anything more superficial in response to a tragic outcome than this.
Right, and then man, to add injury to insult, let's put the plaque up again. Let's put it up again. Okay, that's a sorry ass plaque. In the world of plaques, I mean, just think about it. Look at what this, come on, man. The family deserves much more. The activists who are continuing to go there every year to remind everyone of what happened, that's substantive. That's education, that's informational, okay? That's engagement. This sorry ass plaque does absolutely nothing for the family, nor the continuation of education against those that are bigoted against black and brown people in America. Okay. I told you all today was a Friday, okay? The next story I'm about to show you has absolutely zero news value, but it has a lot of life lesson value. Here it is.
No, fuck you, stupid. You tell me I can't come to practice? Fuck you. Nobody invited you. Fuck you. I came here. You want to settle it right now? Do it on the table. You beat me, and I'll fuck you, motherfucker. Fuck you. You. Doing your stupid skinny motherfucker. You're a bitch, motherfucker. I'm not invited. You're not invited, bitch. Come on.
Ready?
You ain't nothing without you. Ain't on motherfucker. I got you right here, bitch. What?
As I said, zero news value, but life lesson value here. Now, first of all, he got beat up by two people. The second guy wasn't even trying to beat him up. My dad would say this, extended version. You have an alligator mouth with a hummingbird ass. Your mouth writing checks that your ass can't cash. Jordan, this was one of the funniest things I have seen in a long time. I don't advocate for violence, but I do advocate for self-defense. What are your thoughts here?
I love it. I love watching clips like this, whether it's amateur stuff or in fighting. When you see people who are known to ruffle their feathers and run their mouths, get their comeuppance by kind of a quiet person who's more diligent. Like I love seeing Conor McGregor lose. I'm not a huge UFC person, but every time I see him lose, I get so much enjoyment out of it because he runs his mouth. He's a notorious trash talker. He's boastful. He ruffles his feathers a lot. So anytime he loses is great. I love to see it.
Yeah, and he thought he would bully this guy. He called him skinny and insulted him, and I mean it was just all over the place. And then when you really look at the video, after he lost, I mean this is a competition. A lot of people take arm wrestling very seriously. I see these competitions all the time. I mean he lost, and then after he loses, he then strikes the guy. Wait a minute. Let me tell you why this is not smart, Jordan. The guy has already proven he is stronger than you. I mean, you're not a smart cookie. The man just beat you in a strength of arm competition, which means his arms are stronger than yours. And you still decided to strike the guy. All right, this is making the rounds on social media. A great life lesson about not being a bully. Jordan, always a pleasure having you on Indisputable, my brother. Tell people how they can check you out and follow you on social.
Appreciate it. Yeah, I'm on Tuesdays and Thursdays here on TYT hosting Deep Dive, and on Friday nights, Game Buster. So tune in tonight at 8:30 Eastern. Doc, we gotta have you on the show. If you are,
we got to.
Gotta get you on there,
brother. Let's do this because I want to make that happen. Really interesting format on your show, by the way. Get with the production team, bring me on. Let's schedule it. Let's get it done, man. I would love to do it. Okay.
The Doc's gonna game. Let's go.
Yeah, man. It's gonna be fun. I appreciate you, man. Thank you.
Thank you.
We got more on the other side. Bullpen is next. Stick and stay.
I'll predict right here for you, Chris. I think Donald Trump will leave office before his term is up. He'll be humiliated, embarrassed, and I know him. He's not gonna wanna lose, and he's gonna run for the hills.
You got that bet all day long.
Okay, let's get after it. Now, so look, Jake has made some good predictions, and this isn't good fun. I could not disagree more.
There's a little bromance between the two of them. You got that bet all day long, Janky, you. Oh, you stop. In the meantime, let's call him out on the damage.
No, but
I just got a Roku set. Did basically a little bit of channel surfing, and I was like, there we are.
Yeah.
There we are. And then I turned it on, and it was John and Brett on Damage Report making fun of me.
Oh no.
So you are so busted. I even took a picture of it, okay? They're talking about my predictions. I got a new prediction for you, John Idarola.
You're doing a show that's blowing the doors off everybody.
Young Turks is the largest online news network, not a big deal. We're gonna rock the boat. We're gonna be counter-establishment. We're gonna tell people the truth to the best of our abilities. We're so sick of this corruption. We're not the robots on TV. I actually care about the news. Guilty, I care. Fourth day on Occupy Wall Street. Last night we launched Wolfpack. It's us pushing our ideas out there, trying to help the country in every way that we can, trying to make this place just a little bit better. Reporting from the Hillary-Bernie debate, I gotta be honest, you know what we do, we cover it for real. For us, this system isn't working. Free and fair elections. And when he told the cops that day, when they came to drag her away, and he said, if you're gonna chain her, you're gonna chain me. If you're gonna arrest her, you're gonna arrest me. At TYT, our vision is to be the leading global brand in news and talk by serving the audience with authentic commentary and analysis, and to become the digital campfire for the world. And we plan to accomplish that by serving the audience with uniquely authentic commentary and analysis. Put another way, we seek to make TYT into the digital campfire for the world. Today, the traditional mainstream media, along with the government and many of our cherished institutions, have unfortunately been captured by corporate interests. Audiences increasingly sense that they're not getting the whole story or even the truth from once trusted outlets, whether it's broadcast and cable TV news networks or national newspapers and magazines. Instead, the audience is turning to alternative news sources online, the TYT network preeminent among them. Unlike our competitors in the traditional media, we're not beholden to corporate advertisers, to defense contractors, to Wall Street, or to big pharma. And unlike conservative sites online, we're not bankrolled by billionaires looking to push their right-wing propaganda. We only answer to our audience, and for nearly 2 decades, we've delivered by producing honest, timely, and insightful perspectives on the day's news without fear or favor or concern for whose toes we might step on or which powerful elites we might offend.
Hi, I'm Bartholomew Joseph Kyle. I do audio for the main show, The Young Turks. I also do audio for Post Game. I started in 2006. I met Cenk Uygur at the Iraq for Sale screening that was directed by Robert Greenwald. And watching that, I want to figure out a way to be part of something that's genuine and authentic.
Welcome back. Yep, we still got a lot of show left. Let me go to some of these comments. Before I go to the comments, let me remind everyone, we are up for Atlanta Magazine's Best of 2021, Best TV Anchor. You can vote up until October 11th. Real simple. Go to tyt.com/Rashad, tyt.com/RASHAD. Type in my name in the search, in the bar itself, in the box, and you will see something that auto-populates. Click that. Dr. Shaw, Rich Indisputable. Click it, and we are on our way. I appreciate you in advance, okay? Also, we are on podcast. You can take the bullpen anywhere you go. News of the day anywhere you go. Indisputable is on podcast, Acast, Apple, Google, Spotify, Amazon, everywhere, okay? And coming up, Galaxy Brains right after Indisputable. That's going to be fun. That's the big homie, Ben Carollo, Fridays, 4 p.m. Eastern time, 1 p.m. Pacific time. That is a Twitch exclusive, twitch.tv/TYT. Let's get to these comments. TYT member, Jambo Gino, that guy who lost the arm wrestle ain't nothing but a mouth. He ain't nothing but mouth, yeah. Bodega Boy Wonder, the red hat guys look like they drive very big trucks. I'm not saying that. I'm not doing that. We get your sentiment. Colorado Blue Blazer Regular. I wish I had typed that prediction in. I expected she would be associated with Clarence Thomas. Damn, I didn't see that coming. Like this whole thing that has happened now. As a matter of fact, I thought that would be the last family that would do something like this. You might be a prophet, I don't know. You may want to play the lottery today. Kim Dury, I can't believe Dr. Rich is not spoken for. I may have a small chance, LOL. Oh, Kim, that's so sweet. Yeah, I thank you for that. Now I'm feeling like Jordan Uhl now, just embarrassed. Hiram Bifidum. Dr. Richard, please do not stop doing your show. The world as we know it, it is desperately in need of your advocacy, not just in America. People like you are what stands between insanity and society meeting itself halfway. Well, thank you for that. Burb says, new idea for merch for the Doc's channel. You call the cops, you call them for a gun. That may fly. Sasha G, crying emoji, a plaque. Now that's what I call justice. It's ridiculous, right? Okay. Thank you so much. Central Committee rated us. Thanks, Mike from PA, Sierra DC, resubscribed. Insomnia Noor, gifted one tier 1 sub. Eric Cuzort, resubscribed via Prime for 11 months. Thank you so much. Snake Anthony, resubscribed for 10 months. Awesome. Crystal Clanton says, no, in reference to Crystal Clanton, the clerkship story, Zyviz says, I mean, her last name does start with Clan. Bada boom. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Bullpen. In the Bullpen today, we have Mr. Pedro Gonzalez, associate editor at Chronicles, a magazine of American culture. Mr. Gonzalez, good day, welcome.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. We're gonna chop it up about military spending. We may actually agree on some of this stuff, I hope so. But I don't want to presume what you know, believe about the American military and their spending. So if you would, give us your sentiment about it.
Well, although I'm on the right, I'm actually against military spending. I think calling it defense spending is actually a misnomer. I think the grift budget would actually be more accurate because very little of this money actually has to do with national security and national defense. A lot of it has to do with just kind of feeding this war machine that regards Iraqis and Somalis and Afghans with as much hostility as it does the American people. So this is where I break with pretty much all of the Republican Party and much of the right, is that I don't view the Pentagon as it's currently constructed as a friend to American interests. And as a result, I don't think that we should feed the machine much more.
Damn, brother. I never thought I would hear and you're a hardcore conservative, Fox News, the whole nine, right? What you just said, I perfectly agree with. I have been saying this for years, that it's not actually defense spending. That is the branding of the money. And they brand it that way so that people do not look further. They don't want anyone to actually see what the money is being spent on. And when you go and dissect what the money is being spent on, the majority of it is not actually defense budget at all. And a lot of private contractors are involved in this, the military industrial complex, which is a machine in itself. And these are competing interests. And even though they compete against each other sometimes because of the competition, 100%, they're usually competing against the sentiment of Americans, right? So the majority of Americans actually do say that the Pentagon they're getting too much money. We don't agree with the spending that we see in the military budget. Let me give people just a breakdown of how we compare to other countries, okay? And how we compare even historically in this country. So 2020 spending for the military, United States, 778 billion, right? That's compared to, and this is really interesting, that's compared to 252 billion in China, 72.9 India, Russia 61.7, United Kingdom 59.2. Here's the other part of that. Anytime we increase our budget for military spending, you know what else increases? All of their budgets. We literally incentivize other foreign nations to increase their spending for military allotment when we have an increase in our military spending allotment. So let me ask you this, brother, because you are a fascinating political person who has a lot of integrity in this arena. Why do you think the narrative has been so disconnected? Because when you look at the platform of the Republican Party, I would assume that many would actually agree with you when they look at what it's being spent on, because we're talking about being fiscally conservative. We're talking about making sure taxpayers get the bang for their buck. We have to get all of this dark money out of it. As a matter of fact, remember when Donald Rumsfeld years ago, he went on TV and said, hell, I can't account for a lot of money. He laid out a huge figure. He said, I have no idea how we spent that money. So why is it that Republicans didn't jump on that message back then?
I think there's a lot of reasons behind this, but one is certainly that the Republican Party is still kind of living in this Cold War consensus. So for the Republican Party, the enemy is still the Soviet Union, or its most recent iteration of that, which is the Chinese Communist Party. But my rebuttal to this is always that the Chinese have done what they've done to us, which is, eat our lunch, because US elites are bought out. We've allowed them to eat our lunch because we've sold it to them for very cheap, actually. So the problem always actually comes back home. I think that's certainly one part of it. This trapped in like this 50-year thinking. Another aspect of it is the most obvious one, which is there's just way too many material interests in this. And to be clear, I'm not a fiscal conservative. I'm actually not against spending money as long as it's spent well and responsibly and it actually serves the American interests. But you're right, this does actually violently contradict with the GOP's pretending to be fiscal conservatives, because they're not. They support a nearly $1 trillion defense bill that does not just, throw, again, I used the wrong term there, defense bill, grift bill, not just throw money into the furnace, but it also does something that a few years ago we were joking about, which is it has a provision to draft our daughters in war. Although there are more than 70 million males who are eligible for the draft, we now also want to make it so that our daughters can be drafted into the next big war. So I think there's material interest in here, which is just the defense industry that has so many hands in this. If you look at top military leadership, it's kind of a revolving door. You go from being a general to being on the board of Boeing or Northrop Grumman or Raytheon or something like that. So that's obviously a huge part of it. But I think those two kind of button it down. The ideological consensus of we're still living in the 1950s and the biggest threat is Soviet communism, and two, the material aspect of it. I think the two intertwine, but those are the two biggest, broadest, and I think simplest explanations.
In 1961, President Roosevelt in his farewell address warned everybody about the military-industrial complex. And he talked about how if unchecked at that time, it would become a power that nobody could check. Are we there yet? Are we living in the prophecy of President Roosevelt?
Yes, just think a few weeks ago when we had that drone strike that initially we were told that it had killed a terrorist group after that series of suicide bombings in Kabul. It turns out the Pentagon lied to us. They had killed 10 civilians, including 7 children. But for initially it was these were ISIS terrorists. America's safer now because we did another from the hip drone strike. Turned out to be totally false. And they even mistook a propane tank exploding for a kind of secondary suicide bomber explosive device that the drone strike had taken out. It was totally absurd, and there's no accountability for that. No one is going to lose their job for not just that, but for the last 20 years that we've spent traipsing around Iraq and Afghanistan and all these other places where we have no business being. The fact that there is no accountability shows that we've actually reached the point that Eisenhower warned about and actually gone much further than that. The people that are involved in this stuff, they've actually been promoted upwards. Like guys like Mark Milley and Mattis, they have made their careers essentially as failures falling upwards because they say the right things and think the right things. And so that's why guys like Mattis will go on and join a company like Theranos afterwards.
Yeah, and I meant Eisenhower. I think I may have misspoke, but yes. The issue that I'm fascinated by in this conversation is that you're right on the issue, obviously. And I think if you engage an authentic audience, even if that audience happens to be conservative, they will say, that makes a lot of sense. What has the political fallout been, for lack of a better phrase, as it relates to your stance on the military and the direction of many in the Republican Party now?
When I talk to everyday people, it's actually very good. Okay. And an example I give them is that the United States, for the longest time, was allying with, arming, and funding people that were engaged in child sexual abuse in places like Afghanistan. The Department of Defense knew that this was happening. And in fact, there's a provision called the Leahy Act that is supposed to prevent US funding from going to allies that are engaged in human rights abuses with impunity. The Department of Defense actually found a loophole to continue funding our so-called allies in Afghanistan, although they knew they were doing things like raping children on US bases. And when this got brought to light, the Department of Defense actually defended it and said, well, we need to keep the money going in order to keep the region stable. But what US troops were hearing on the ground when they tried to intervene, when our so-called Afghan allies were doing things like raping little boys and little girls, is the US military would actually discharge them and pull them out of Afghanistan and punish them for intervening. And so the things that US soldiers were hearing, like Green Berets, was that we were doing things worse to them than what the Taliban had done. Now imagine you're some kid that grows up in the Midwest and you believe in right and wrong, and so you join the US military, you become a Green Beret, and you go over there, and that's what you hear from people that you're trying to help is your government is actually hurting us. And then your government actually turns on you when you try to do the right thing. And I think when you can frame it like that for everyday Americans, that we should be ashamed of our government, but we can still be proud of who we are as Americans, and view that the fact that the government hates us, the United States regime hates us as much as it does Afghans, that message is incredibly powerful. It's also the message that no Republican or very few Democrats, in fact, actually want to make, to create this distinction between the so-called national defense complex and the American people. For whatever reason, I mean, there are many, no one is really in the mainstream making that argument. And the people that are, oddly enough, it's like you said, people like myself and even people like Tucker Carlson that are actually pointing this out. Is look, the United States government views you with as much hostility as it does Iraqis.
Let's talk about policy, because everything you're talking about, Pedro, is actually against policy, right? These are violations of policy. There's a written code. There's also a statutory mandate, and there's a penalty if you get caught violating these policies, right? But as I say often, culture will eat policy alive every day. And what you're dealing with is a cultural issue that cannot be corrected with simple oversight or even the enforcement of the rules. It has to be a cultural shift. So what's the remedy here, brother? What's on the table to reverse the negative culture that has been created over decades and decades of military spending, as well as lack of accountability?
I think it requires two things. One, it requires a kind of grassroots approach where you're actually just making these arguments to everyday people and telling them to take this argument to your elected official. Call, write, protest, tell people that are supposedly representing you in office that we're against this machine. we don't want to continue funding this thing. We don't like what the United States government, what the Pentagon is doing with our money and doing with our moral credibility, because it also undermines, I think this is important. This is an intangible thing, but it's still something important, right? We're proud to be Americans. But then when we know that our government is funding these wars, that is, we're selling weapons of war to the Saudis so that they can genocide the people in Yemen, that that seems to really undermine the idea of America being a good nation. And people like us think it is. But obviously, again, we're up against our own government in this. So I think that's one aspect of it, is really just getting everyday people to see the issue clearly and then doing something about it, acting on that anger. I think anger is actually good. People will tell you that it's not, but I think anger in politics is actually good and useful when directed constructively. And I think another aspect of it is that we're going to need at some point in the future, and I'm sorry to say this for your viewers, but Biden is turning out to be not the most anti-war president. He got us out of Afghanistan, but we're still in Iraq, Syria, Somalia. We're still doing this stuff. So I think at some point in the future, it's actually going to take someone in the White House to do something like institutional decapitation, by which I mean firing a whole lot of people, including most of all top generals, the people that perpetuate this culture top down, because in the military, everything's top down, right? So if you want to change the culture of the military, then you actually have to change its leadership. This is a drastic, but I actually think it needs to happen.
Let's talk about, and we only have a few minutes left, man, and I really appreciate the authentic engagement. Let's talk about American policy as it relates to terrorism. So naturally, we said as a country, we have waged a war on terrorism. Well, terrorism, as evil as it is a mindset. It happens through a social indoctrination. And typically at the root of terrorism is American policy. There's some dynamic of American policy associated with a foreign country that can be the genesis of the recruitment mechanism, the engagement mechanism, and the terrorism over that social development process, right? When are we going to address the policies of America and how they actually create a cause and effect relationship between terrorism and what happens not only domestically, but to our interest around the globe?
But you recall, guys like Pat Buchanan were actually making this argument in the 90s, for which they got chastised and basically chased out of the mainstream conservative movement for. But now I think there's so much frustration that everyday people kind of sense this, that actually a lot of these issues seem to be self-inflicted. That's not to say that we deserve it. Everyday Americans do not deserve to be killed because of the bad policies of their leaders. Anyone who says that that these things, or tries to conflate these two things, that if you criticize our policies and say it actually makes people hate us, then you're saying that you want your neighbor to die. That's a absurd, frankly stupid argument. It's also totally unfair, but it's true. We have to get, I think the smallest step is the most important one, is making that distinction. Look, the policies of our leaders are actually making people around the world hate us and therefore putting us in danger. That is, I think, the most important thing, is creating that distinction and not being afraid to make it, because it's understandable that people are reluctant to make that point, because very quickly it seems that you'll invite the accusation of hating America. You're no different from ISIS or something like that. Again, totally wrong and ridiculous. So and that is actually the biggest point.
Yeah, and I've made that point before too. When we talk about a nation that may be antithetical to America, and we're looking at, let's say, a family or kids, like they're not the leadership of that country. We can't hate them because of a policy adopted by the rich and the powerful and the government of that country. We have to also provide nuance for them, just as we would like nuance provided for us right here in America. So I agree with you on that. I'm not going to muddy this up with some kind of massive debate, because the truth is, I agree with you 99% of everything you said, except for that about Tucker Carlson, just because I don't like him. But everything that you said, brother, I'm with you all the way. I want to have you back on the show. I think you make a lot of sense. I think you are able to pull some of that conservative crowd over to more of a common sense review of what we do with our US military spending. And I gotta tell you, Pedro, you and I may disagree on a lot of things based on ideology. On this, we are in complete agreement, brother, and I appreciate you speaking the truth that you know it to be.
Oh, well, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. All right, don't forget, we got Galaxy Brains next, okay? Also, take care of yourself, take care of each other, Take care of the planet. Remember, the truth is always indisputable.